Now, welcome back. My group member have tell you about the cooling systems. It's few types like water cooling systems and other oil cooling and charge air system. And then it has told you about turbocharger and its working, and then other few parameters for indicates engine performance. Now, if the engine has some problem, or you have to first of all reduce that problem comes, so we have to do some maintenance, or you can say some protective measures. Next. Now, first of all, we will define maintenance. It is basically the process of keeping engine or equipment in a good condition by making repairs or correcting problems. So there are few strategies. Like the first one is preventive maintenance. Preventing maintenance is for a proactive approach. Like before incoming of any problem, you have to first reduce its chances of occurring, its chances of probability. And then is the reactive approach, which is corrective maintenance. And you have, if the problem comes, you have to do some measures to repair it. And then there is major overhauling, which will be done after a year, or after a very long period. And then is troubleshooting of problems that are very minor or very um common. Next. Now, this is the first of the preventive maintenance chart that will tell you about what preventive maintenance will you require when you will drive less than 5,000 miles. And you have to require first of all the changing of oil, and then the checking of tires, and then wheel alignments when your car has driven less than 5,000 miles. And when your car has driven 5,000 miles, then you have to first of all check brake inspections, oil change, and gear oil inspection. Similarly, for 15,000 miles and 30,000 miles. And after 60,000 miles, you have to change spark plugs, because after burning of lot of fuels and other things, basically our engine is Wart's, so there is no need of spark plug changing. And we have to see the fuel injectors. And similarly, after 6,000 miles, you have to change engine coolants. This is roughly the estimation on the base of average data collected. You have to keep observing the all the components. If any components be will be getting a problem, you have to repair them. Next. Now, these are few points of preventive maintenance. First of all, I have told you about that preventing maintenance is proactive approach. That before coming of any problem, you have to first reduce its probability of coming, its chances of coming. So first, we have to number one is seats and seat belt security. This is basically for the security, for the protection of a person who is driving, or the person who is sitting in the car, so that if any accident occur, he must be safe. Then there is oil level. You have to monitor oil level before driving. You have to first see the oil level, that it is up to the recommended level, because if the oil level is below the recommended level, it cannot the engine cannot work correctly. Then come to coolant level. Coolant level is very necessary, because you have to cool the engine. And then is first aid kit. uh, Normally the people don't keep that first aid kit in the car, but it is necessary. If there is an emergency, you have to use it. Then comes to fire extinguisher. Then fire extinguisher it will be helpful when your car might catch fire. And then is spare wheel. Most of the car driver keep spare wheels, spare tire. And then is wheel branch and other things too. And now you have to also see that brake fluid level is very necessary, because mostly now there is hydraulic brakes are used in common, so the fluid level must be monitored, and must be refilled if the level is below. And then come to power steering. Power steering, basically the mostly hydraulic steerings are used, and so you have to also see the steering fluid also. And then is the few other points like the body panel, windshield and windows, side mirrors, logbooks. And then comes to battery. Basically the battery, you have to see that battery terminals are correctly connected, and there is no loose connection in between them. and the battery level of the level of water or acid in the battery and the pH of acid in the battery must be carefully monitored, must be regularly checked by technician after a month or two. Then is the tire condition. On a long or you can also say that on a short drive you have to see the tire pressure and conditions, because if there is no other technician nearby, you will be facing problem. Then is wheel nut tightness. This is the most important. You have to first check that all nuts are tight before when you drive a car, before when you drive engine or other the uh, because that engine is also used in some large uh, you can say in large trucks or large other things. So you have to also see all the things also. In view of the respect of the engine, you have to nut tightness is basically related to the flywheel nut tightness and other things, and the other battery connections are also related to the other, if other motors are used for pumping the fluid into the engine and other things. Next. Then comes to corrective maintenance. Corrective maintenance is basically maintenance of when you are facing some problem, and you have to repair it, or you have to you have to do some you have to do some maintenance for it. So there is basically the few points like fail repair. If there is something failure, you have to do some its repair. Then is overhauling, then servicing and rebuild. Rebuild is basically done after that all components are almost wasted. Then you have to rebuild that. Next. Now steps for corrective maintenance. These are the few steps for corrective maintenance. First of all, you have to remove or disassemble the engine. Let's an example. Let's see the engine, our 18V25. So first of all, if it is facing problem in the let's you can say in the fuel injector, then first of all you have to disassemble that part of the engine and then inspect it, that what problem it is facing, and if the engine, if that problem is can be repairable, then you can repair it. And then if the third point is disposing no repairable material, which means that if that fuel injector is unable to be repaired, then you have to you have to dispose it and insert new fuel injector in that. And similarly, repairing worn out parts, the parts that that's the components that are out of order or out that have too much problem that they cannot be repaired, then you have to insert new components that at that place. And then you have to check replaceable part that you have replaced in the supervision of a technician. Next. Now major overhauling. Major overhauling is basically the disassembly of the whole engine and then assemble it after doing necessary repairs and maintenance. So first of all, it has few steps. So first of all, you have to disassemble all the engine. The most major overhauling include mostly above than 50% part of the engine, and then you have to inspect that engine parts and spare parts, and you have to then prepare and submission of inspection report that you have inspect all the parts and you have identified what the problem engine is facing. And then you have to then at the fourth point you have, and the fourth step, you have to overhaul or you have to repair these parts, and then you have to assemble back the engine, and then you start the engine in the supervision of a trained technician that knows that all the components are assembled correctively and the repairing is done at good level. Next. Now these are the brief definition, or you can description of the steps. Then you can at the number one step you have you can see that removal and assembly of the engine, and then is inspection of diesel engine and spare parts, and then is preparation and submission of report. Report is because you are a worker. If you are working in industry, then you have to submit report to the officers, that they will see what the problem engine is facing, and then they can send that report to the manufacturer, and they will recommend the proper procedure, and then according to that procedure you can repair that engine. Next. Now is fourth step. Fourth step is the calibration overhauling of the engine spare parts. Now you have done with inserting new parts, or you have done with other maintenance. Then you have to calibrate and the engine parts, that your engine is working correctly. First, let's suppose you are inserting a new uh, fuel injector. So first of all, you are checking its that what pressure of fluid or fuel he is injecting. Is it injecting the right pressure of the fuel? That is the calibration, and the calibration must be done with the latest tools and equipment. And then is the assembly of the engine. You have to assemble the engine according to the guidelines provided in its book. Then start of engine in the presence of a technician. Next. Then it comes troubleshooting. Troubleshooting basically the finding the case. You have to find the case first of all, and then is doing the maintenance. And let's first these few steps are written here. First of all, you have to identify the problem, then gather the information about the problem, that what type of problem you are facing, and then you have to develop solution about that right solution for that which is very feasible and which is very economical according to the industry, and which is also related to that engine. And then the fourth point is to implement that solution, and then comes that repeat if the problem is not solved, and if the problem is solved, you get ready for its start. Next. Now there are a few other troubleshooting diesel engine. First of all, these are few A to G are the few problems if the engine is facing. First of all, the point A. Point A is engine not starting. If the engine is not starting, then you have to do troubleshooting. That first of all, you have to identify the problem. Then you have to gather information about that. Then you have to implement finding the correct solution. Then you have to do implement that solution, and then you have to at the last you have checked that your problem is solved or not. These are few problems like high fuel consumption occurs in the engine. Then comes to our engine is overheating. Then the engine is generating low power. Why it is generating low power? What is the problem comes behind that? Then is excessive oil consumption or oil leakage in outside this engine. And then is changing the oil pressure. And then at the last point you are hearing different type of noise from engine. Next. These are the few points that we have already seen, that what is the trouble and what I have to do. First of all, we will check first point, that what you have to do if your engine fails to start. You have to first see these causes. There are these causes are written on the checkbook or the related notebook of the engine, that if there is lack of fuel, then engine fails to start. Then if there is defect in our case, there is defect in you can say in fuel injector, then engine fails to start. Then if the battery is weak, you can say that engine fails to start. Then there is then if there is internal problem, if the piston is jammed, or if the piston rings are broken, then also engine fails to start. Or if there is any problem in the intake manifold, that air required amount of air is not going inside the engine, then engine also fails to start. Its recommend is few solutions are written on the right side of your screen. And then is the next problem is engine fails to idle properly. and then is other problems are written. And on the third point, there is low power and engine running even. If the engine is giving low power, then first you can see that why he is giving uh, why it is giving low power. It is due to the incorrect valve clearance. If the clearance in the valves are not good, then the valves may be getting uh, destroyed, or if they or the exhaust and intake occurs not properly. Then there is if the second point is that improper grade of oil, the fuel is not up to the standard and it is not providing the latent fuel of combustion, and so you are not getting the power. Then is defective in ignition wire. Ignition wire is basically in spark plugs, so it is basically related to SI engines. And its few remedies are that first you have to adjust valve clearance if there is incorrect valve clearance, and then if there is improper grade of oil, you have to fill tank with recommended grade or recommended manufacturer. And if there is a defective in ignition wire in case of SI engines, then you have to replace that defective wires. And on the basic of smokes, on the fourth point, there is on the basic of smoke, you can identify that if your engine is not working properly. Next, then comes to industrial applications. Industrial application. The engine is transit power sector of Kohinoor Textile Mills, Faisalabad. Because our group member have visited that area and that industry, and he has seen that in the engine that it is working with full capacity, and it is basically a good engine that is delivering maximum power, um, and more power than its comparable engines. Next. Then comes to applications. Few other applications are that it is used in marine propulsion, like in case of large ships, and in other textile industries. It is also in use in Pakistan. There are two to three textile industries which are using these types of engine. As Varsla is basically based in Finland, but its office and its industry is also in Lahore. So that in that the Varsla engines are also common in Pakistan too. So we can also see that Varsla is in international manufacturer. So it is also there's manufacturing unit Varsla 18B25 is also in use in Nigeria at its shipyard. And at the last, I am telling you that it is ideal for small LNG carriers, the tankers, ferries, and tugs. Next. Next comes to conclusion of the presentation that covers various theoretical aspects and technical